Hello, everyone, and welcome to a raw review of the Order 1886. I'm your host, Judge Raw00, aka Rick, from Spitting Venom Radio. So this is my first review, so bear with me with any technical issues or any awkwardness. Still getting, my legs under me with this kind of thing. For anyone that has watched me on Twitch, sometimes it can be a little bit of a rough process. Anyhow, I'm going to go right into the review, starting with the beginning of the Order 1880. I'm kind of going to break it up a little bit, beginning, middle, end, and talk about afterwards, after I talk about the game in general, I'll talk about individual things like sound and gameplay and graphics and so actually that kind of thing will be weaved into the entire review because there's different things like the gameplay in Order 1886 changes so much that it's hard to really discuss the gameplay in general, because you can go from a shooting mission till the next thing you know, you're going to be going through a QTE, a quick time event scenario, and then it could be a stealth mission next mission. So it's hard to really, and it could be just corridors of walking for several minutes, half an hour of just walking. But first of all, overall, I'll say that I enjoyed the Order 1886. I'm excited to see what they do with the franchise next. The beginning of the game, you start off and you're kind of given no indication about what you're doing. You're being drowned and feels like you're being tortured, similar to the way that troops do it and that kind of thing to get information from you, I guess, waterboarding. But it reminded me in a way of Heavy Rain, which is weird, because you go right from that and the next thing you know, you're doing a QTE sequence, which is, you're fighting off these guards in a similar way that you fight, there's a sequence in Heavy Rain where you're playing as the girl, I forget what her name is, and you're fighting off somebody. And the QTEs were very similar. You have to, tap really fast on the controller, or you have to, do a circular motion with the L3. So, and to start off a game like that where that's not even the core gameplay, I felt like that was kind of a rough start. Not to mention that you don't even have any context for what you're doing. Why am I supposed to be caring about this character and what he's going through right now? So, and of course, I know that's a common narrative thing that they use, where you start off and you don't know anything going in, and you start off in a future, and then it flashes back to the past and whatnot. But I feel like that's a stronger thing to use when you actually have some sort of emotional connection to the characters that are involved. And in this case, you had no idea who Galahad at the time was. You didn't even know his name at the time. You didn't find out what the character's name was until you got on the bridge. So, kind of a rough start for the game, in my opinion. But it gets better. The next thing you know, you're flashed back and you get a proper introduction to Galahad and the other characters in the Order, Sebastian and the girl's name that I forgot, and Marquis, who is actually my favorite character. Wasn't such a big fan of Galahad himself. He was kind of like we didn't really understand. I think this game would have benefited from some sort of, prequel, not a game, but maybe a novel of some sort, or, a codex, similar to what they have in Mass Effect, a codex. Because you have an idea of what everything is, rather than just little snippets and ideas. I understand that this is a snapshot in these characters' lives and history, so you don't have the same connection to them as they have to each other. but I feel like it would have benefited if we would have been given some way of going back into their histories and seeing how these characters came together and why they have this brotherhood and that kind of thing. Because you can feel the sense of brotherhood amongst one of them, or at least they try to make you feel that way, but there's no reason for you to care about it. So you go from that, and then you go to the middle of the game, which is, a lot of it's walking. Every time you go into the Brotherhood's, or the Order's rather, headquarters, it's a long, cutscene. I don't mind cutscenes. Cutscenes are okay. They, expand upon the story and that kind of thing. If the story was, a good thing, which for the most part I didn't really enjoy it myself. Some people did, some people didn't. But to me, it was, until the end. The end, it kind of like things took a turn, and when you actually go back to where you started at in the beginning, from then on, it becomes a really interesting. Like they introduce vampires and that kind of very spoiler-perfect review. By the way, I just want to let you know I'll have that in the description. So if you don't want any spoilers, don't watch this review. Cause even I already spoiled and say at the beginning, so I already spoiled it. There's vampires, yes. So when the vampires get included, which they're not like incredibly important in this game, I feel like that's something that's going to come and be a bigger deal in later iterations of the series. But at the beginning of this franchise, they're not all that important. They're very subtle, and I don't really know if the vampires and the Lycans are, if they're allied together or if they're supposed to be enemies or if they just coexist. I didn't understand. If they're both considered half-breeds, there was a term thrown around a lot. So that's another thing that was never really explained. I think could have benefited in some way, some kind of codex or a prequel graphic novel they do these days, which the Order had none of that. So, I'm taking it as it is. And again, I know that it's a snapshot in these characters' lives, that maybe we shouldn't be given this kind of information just from the game, but there's different ways to inform the players now with the internet, and some games take advantage of that kind of thing, like Mass Effect with the Codex, and they have prequel novels and that kind of thing. I think this game could have done wonders with that kind of thing, but they didn't, especially with the Holy Grail. I guess there was very little said about that, even though it existed. And apparently that's your sustenance, that's what keeps you going, how these characters can live for centuries, which was alluded to in the game. I need to get a water. I have a whole bunch of bottles of water on the ground, just so I can have something in case I need it. So, a lot of QTE sequences, which I don't mind QTEs so much if they weren't, if they're used for not a primary, game mechanic, which in this game, if you're not walking or shooting, you're doing a QTE. That's pretty much it. There's 2 or 3 stealth sequences that are kind of break up the game, and I know there's been a lot of criticism of the stealth sequences. I didn't hate them. They were, they just existed in the game, weren't necessary, so it's up to you whether you liked them or not. I didn't. They were made easier because if you decide to use the weapon they gave you, the crossbow, it's tons easier to get through them. So if you're going through a stealth sequence, I suggest you use that crossbow, because otherwise you're going to be getting caught and getting shot, and you have to start all over, which is, that's an annoying mechanic. That's, if you get caught, you should just be able to, fight through it or something like that, or, to give some sort of leeway that they, rather than have to go to the beginning of the sequence, which, I managed to get past it after only a couple tries, but I can imagine if somebody's going through it over and over and over again. This is a sequence that could maybe make somebody want to quit the game, which would be terrible because the level that goes afterwards is probably the best level in the game, where you go through, you fight off the different enemies leading up to where you meet with the I forget, the Duke or whatever his name was. And you find out he's like what he is. And so after that, you go back to you get captured. Galahad is captured, and he's being, tortured and that kind of thing. You go back to where you were at the beginning, and then from there, it leads into the ending sequence, which to me the best part of the game, except for the final battle, because you fight a werewolf, and the werewolf fights are terrible in this game. They just are. There's no getting around that. They're easy. I mean, they're easy to cheese, but if you're not, don't use that mechanic, they're just ridiculous. And then there's the one-on-one fight with them, where you just stand there. It's a complete QTE event. There's nothing else other than that, which is the worst. It's like one of the worst experiences you could ever have in this game, in any video game. So, and it's pretty bad to cap off the game with that, because everything leading up to that is interesting. Everything from, you falling off the bridge up to when you recover, and then you have to go and save Nicola. That's why you're going to go back to where you escaped from to save Nicola. So you break in and you have to fight the werewolf, the leader, I guess, of the werewolves, or the werewolves into the order. So you go in, you fight him, and that's pretty much it. You escape again. Nicola comes with you. I think he does, if I remember right. And then that's it. That's it. That's the end of the game. And it's obviously they're leaving a lot of material for a sequel, maybe even a prequel, like I said, that could be used in this case. I'm not a big fan of prequels myself. I would rather them just use the opportunity to expand into other mediums like graphic novels, and even novels, or something like that, rather than an entire game that just focuses on the past of the Order. Even though that could be interesting too. So what did I miss? Anything? Another problem with, because there's an important character that dies during the game, and you have no real connection to this character. So it's kind of why it could benefit from some sort of prequel or knowledge or some reason to care about this character before, other than he's your friend. Apparently he's Galahad's best friend. That's all I can imagine. Or he's the only one that really introduces Galahad to the conspiracies that the Order is wrapped up in. So the ending, the ending sequence kind of reminds me of Batman. There's a post-credit sequence or scene with Galahad on top of the rooftop, and he's looking over London, and it's very cool. I like that, and that was the coolest shot in the game, I would imagine. But like I said, the graphics are out of this world. The best looking game on the next gen consoles yet. It is the best looking game on the next gen consoles. Period. I haven't seen a game that even comes close to this. Not one that's coming up, and not one that's already passed. It's a very gorgeous game, but unfortunately, that's the best thing about it. The voice acting is good, it's for what it is. But the story doesn't really, the story doesn't benefit these actors. So maybe, hopefully, in the future, we'll see more from them in this game, in this franchise. So that's my review of the Order 1886. If I was to give a number to the game, I would, give it a 6. Between 6 and 7, something like that. Not a fantastic game, not a bad game. It's something that you should play, just to experience it, and then, but don't, go out and spend $60 on this game like I did. I spent $60 on the game, but I'm also going to be selling it or I have sold it on eBay and I made $40 back. So $20 on this game is a reasonable amount of money. Do not spend $60 on this game because it's not worth it. It's worth a rent. You can beat it in a few days, a day. If you have an afternoon or an evening, or just sitting down, you can seriously beat this game in 8 hours. I think that's about how long it took me. I didn't get to platinum, so I didn't 100% the game, but there's not much replay value. There's no replay value to the game. You just beat it, and then you move on to something else, something better, hopefully. So that's my review. I appreciate any views, and if you like my review, subscribe to me on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter. As you can see, my little social media thing up there is changing between my different social media links. You can follow me on like me on Facebook, Judge Raw, Twitch. On Twitter, I'm at JudgeRaw00. You can see my Twitch handle right there, and I regularly stream games. I'm going to be doing more reviews, and I'll be playing the games that I review on stream. So you can follow me. I would really appreciate that, and appreciate any views, any support you could give. Let your friends know, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching.